I'm deep in the reads, and I'm going to be trying something a little bit different today, doing a review totally off the cuff. I haven't written any notes about it. I'm just going to jump right into it because the book I'm looking at today is pretty simple. It's a 130-page graphic novel that I read in like an hour and a half called Red Harvest by Michael Cherkas. Michael Cherkas is a Canadian author with Ukrainian heritage. Canada is the place in the world with the most Ukrainians outside of Ukraine. We have a huge immigrant community of Ukrainians, mostly in the West, that came here sort of in the early 1900s and around the time also of the Red Famine, which is what this graphic novel is about. The Red Famine, or Ukrainian famine, or Holodomor as it's typically called, was a famine from 1930 to 1933 caused by the Soviet Union's disastrous compulsory collective farming strategies, and also that combined with a long-standing dislike of Ukrainian sovereignty, Ukrainian culture. It was a very intentional mass starvation campaign where wheat and other types of produce that Ukraine is famous for was taken hand over fist. Millions of people die, usually the numbers between 3 to 5 million, and there was also widespread cannibalism as the desperation mounted, to the point where there was actually a thriving black market of human meat. So it was quite apocalyptic, otherworldly, the stuff of horror stories. So Michael Cherkas, having this Ukrainian heritage, wanted to do a story about one of the most famous times that Russia has tried to destroy Ukraine, which obviously has modern implications. And so he went back and did a story about the Holodomor. Now, it's done kind of in the style of Mouse by Art Spiegelman, where you have this framing device of this old man who's sort of still traumatized by what happened to him when he was younger. His family kind of knows about it, but not all the details. So he finds this family photo, and his children, his son and the wife, are there when he finds them, and he starts telling the whole story of what happened to him. How he was this little boy with his big family, and then the starvation campaign started to happen, and his family was sort of split apart. Some of them were empathetic to the Soviet cause, and then some of them obviously weren't right from the outset. And in fairness, I can see why somebody would want to believe in the Soviet cause, this idea of sharing in your profits, being seizing the means of production, and forming community bonds through this shared labor and mutual wealth. I understand why somebody would be sucked into that. It's just that over the course of this starvation, you realize that they're in it for the long haul. The only thing they want is to fulfill quotas. It doesn't matter how much it costs in terms of the human element, as long as they're able to produce prodigious amounts of grain and scrape the bottom of every barrel to get every last drop of food. And anyone who hides food is accused of being bourgeoisie or profiteering or anything, and they are dealt with very swiftly by on-the-spot executions. But at the same time, this book is very tasteful, I guess, in the way that it does things. It's not gruesome. A lot of stuff that happens off page. For example, they allude to the cannibalism in one case, and they allude to things like sexual violence or whatever, but generally speaking, it's done in sort of a euphemistic way. So I would almost say that a graphic novel like this would be suitable for somebody in 8th grade. I could totally see this being a good book to assign to kids in school, or to have on a list of books to do a project about, for example. So because of that, it's very simple in a lot of ways. It's very, there's not really any shades of gray, which I guess is one of the key issues I have with this book, is that it does seem like it's written kind of for a younger audience, and so a lot of the nuance and a lot of the detail that I might want in something like this, even with things like the characters, are kind of simplified and parsed down. So it's kind of it does a decent job at giving you the broad overview of the Holodomor, what it was like to experience from the perspective of one small village, and you don't really get the broad picture kind of thing. But that said, I still think it was an interesting read. I did get something out of it, and I found the art style was pretty daring as well. It, like the author says in the beginning, there's a little author note, and he says, I went for this really scratchy, scribbly, kinetic style of drawing because I wanted it to seem like something that a peasant with not a lot of art training could have done and like smuggled out while they were being famined, I guess. And so it kind of does give you that impression like it was drawn in a hurry and that kind of thing, but there's still a decent amount of expression and striking imagery to be found. The only problem is sometimes I got confused over characters because they sort of looked similar at certain points. Overall, it was minor. I still, enjoyed the story even though it was morbid. I still think it's a nice, quick introduction to this aspect of Ukrainian-Russian relations that maybe not a lot of people know about, and so if you see it at your library, I would definitely pick it up. I would give it 6.5 out of 10. So yeah, it's a solid book, but it's not gonna blow your mind or anything. But yeah, definitely check it out if you're interested. And yeah, that's my short little review there. So hope you enjoyed. If you've read it, let me know what you think. If you have any other graphic novels that are sort of in a similar vein, I'd love to hear from you. That's me, I've been Deep in the Reads. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.